They hear it because it's like I'm attacking their institution. But I told them, if you don't feel that way about your school, shame on you. But the only place Jesus would have sent his disciples is to Virginia Union, except Judas. He would have sent him somewhere else. But there's nothing like, that university down off of Lombardi, down in Richmond, Virginia. So I am excited about my brothers and my sisters who have gone through the rigorous training of going through and enduring the looking out the windows of Dr. Jerome Clayton Ross, the throwing away of the Bible of Dr. Boykin Sanders, the You Can't Preach, Dr. James Henry Harris. But those of us that went through that rigor and went through that development and that training and being mesmerized in Dr. Dean Kenny's class, we are all here. And we are excited to be together because normally we'll get together at Hampton during that time for our Tuesday luncheon. But God bless you all for coming. It is my prayer that something is said during these 2 days that will revolutionize your understanding of trauma. And to those that have traveled from near and far, God bless you and may God keep you. But welcome to the First Baptist Church of Ensley.
University and McCormick Theological Seminary, equipping leaders to navigate both ministry and mental health with wisdom and care. He is also the author of Becoming Married, Staying Married, a guide that strengthens relationships within our communities. Please join me in welcoming Reverend Dr. William Marcus Small.
Good evening, everyone. We hope and pray that you are and have had an outstanding meal and time in fellowship. It was just so good to see people who are familiar with one another sharing in this particular space. And we know the great fellowship and connection that happens when union nights get together. So this is a good time, and I'm grateful for the thought to be invited to share in this moment. To our directors, can we give them a hand again? Dr. Rodriguez, ride with me on this trip. So thank God for her. And to my homie, sister friend, Dr. Only. I'm glad she's here sharing tonight. I'm grateful for this. This is good space. This is good space. This is good energy. This is necessary space. As clergy, I want to thank Reverend Stewart for blessing us yesterday. He picked us up from the airport and showed us everything Birmingham had to offer. And I'm grateful for him. He's a fantastic historian about the story and the history of this area. And gave us a whole lot of knowledge. So I'm grateful. Brother Larry took us in, flew us in from the hotel here tonight. So we're really grateful for the fellowship that has been awesome and wonderful. We're going to just go ahead and do what we do. And we're going to, because of the space, if there are questions, things of that nature, just go ahead and we can go back and forth and dialogue and kick it. But we want to talk about, as we talk about, my work is marriage and family, and I deal with trauma in those spaces to some degree, and understanding trauma, how it affects us as congregations, and how it affects you as spiritual leaders. How trauma affects you as spiritual leaders, us as spiritual leaders. We operate, and Dr. Only will expand this tomorrow, I'm sure, but we operate in spaces of denial and thinking that we ourselves are immune to traumatic experiences. And so it is important that we understand the dynamics and the interpretation. So as we go through this PowerPoint tonight, I want you to consider the spaces, not just how this is going to give you good preaching, or where you can find good sermons from this, but how you begin to instill these things and concentrate in terms of ministry. How you do ministry and how you approach ministry in the spaces in which you operate. All right? So let's take a moment. Do we have a PowerPoint? Or will they do it for me? All right. If not, I mean, we can break it work. If not, you go to Fellowship Hall and see it. It's really good. It's really good if they don't have it up here. But let's open up and create space in a word of prayer. Gracious God, how we love and thank you. We receive the spirit and the energy of this time and this moment. And we ask, God, that you just continue to pour into us, that we might feel your presence, and that we might hear and experience things that are transformative, that are restorative, that speak to justice, that speak to healing. Use this moment, that we might be present. We feel and thank you for the spirits that have gone before us. Thank you for the ancestors that have made ways and made this possible. And God, in your power and your presence, we seek to heal their traumas that have been passed down, so that we might indeed be healed to pass an energy that is positive and liberating for the future. Use us in this space. Bless this your instrument for your work. In Jesus' name we pray. We say amen. Amen. All right, so I want to look up, I can't be an SDU preacher without a text, right? So I want to look up, if you all could find, I'm sure there's a Bible in your pew. I like to walk around, so I might take this thing. There we go. All right, I want you to take a look at Luke 12. You can pull it up, Luke 12, it'll pop up in just a second. And Jesus says, he also said to the crowds that when you see a cloud rising in the west, you say at once, a shower is coming. And so it happened. And when you see the south wind blowing, you say there will be scorching heat, and it happened. You hypocrites, you know how to interpret the appearance of earth and sky, but why do you not know to interpret the present time? Right? Jesus shares with this crowd the ability to identify the climate. You can identify the atmosphere, the weather. You're good at that. You can stick your finger in the air and tell what's going to happen, but they have no sense of the conditions that they're living in. They can talk about the atmosphere, but they can't see the conditions that they're living in to be just as dangerous. The challenge for the current church leader is to have to be encouraged to be thermometers and not thermostats. The assignment for us is to be thermometers and not the thermostat. The thermostat is what ultimately controls the heat or the temperature of the climate. Right? The thermometer simply tells you what the climate is. Right? So the thermometer just tells you that it's hot or that it's cold or what degree it is. But the thermostat is what controls the atmosphere. We have to understand that as leaders in this particular climate, particularly in this climate, that we have an assignment and a responsibility to do something about the atmosphere we're in. Right? And so as we continue to talk about this and understand the responsibility as spiritual leaders to do that, we must recognize that we have to pay attention, right, to the conditions in which we function. It is our assignment, our job, to pay attention to the current climate in which we operate, to which we pastor, to which we preach, and to which we minister. That our responsibility to literally is to listen to the drums. When we talk about drums in our context, in the space of people who are kissed by nature's son, from the African descendants of Africans in America, Africans use the talking drum on this continent and across the water to communicate with each other over long distances. The drum was a communicative tool. It was a tool that helped people understand the messages of what needed to happen. Drum codes were used for warnings. They were used for activities. News was shared. Those who were experts, those who were pretty good, got to be proficient with the drum, could almost imitate the drum sound with voices and lyric and tone. And so people were informed as to information when meetings would be held, when information needed to be given, when warnings were given. The drum was a detection and a warning to keep from oppressors and to know when situations would happen. Drums forced people to listen and pay attention. Drums were so significant that drums were ultimately banned by the oppressor. Drums were kept away from the Africans, and the Africans were forbidden to use them according to purpose because they were such good tools of communication. When you heard the drum, you knew what to do. So for those of us who operate in spaces of ministry and who function in liberative spaces, need to make sure that we are paying attention to the drum. So many times what happens when we get in spaces of leadership, or when we believe God has called us, or when we believe God is using us for certain things, we get excited because God gives us vision. God gives us vision, and we get excited about the vision, and we want to implement our vision, and then we fight with deacons because of vision. We fight with trustees because of vision. We wrestle with church mothers because of vision, because we got vision. God called us. We got vision. This is what God called us to do. We got authority. We operate in these particular spaces. We got vision, but we ain't listening to no drums. We're so caught up in what God has given us that we don't understand what the people need. We haven't heard what they're going through, haven't heard their experiences, haven't heard and recognized their traumas to know how we fit the vision to the ministry. And so we find ourselves in these particular spaces because, in case you did not know, people are dealing with trauma. That's why they come to worship with you. That's why they come to wrestle through particular issues. I don't care what you say. I don't care if I'm hurting your feelings right now. Most people don't come because they're trying to get saved.
All right.
Most people are coming because they're hurting and they're trying to figure out what to do.
All right.
They're trying to figure out what to do with their pain. What does God have to say about the hell I'm going through? Does God care about what I'm dealing with? It makes us think about what our message should be and how we minister, right? Because if somebody's hurting, and we talk about eternity, they're like, I don't need you to save my soul, I need you to save my life.
All right.
So folks are going through trauma. Thank you. What is trauma? Right? Trauma refers to a deeply distressing and overwhelming experience that can have a significant and lasting impact on a person's mental, physical, and emotional well-being. What does that mean? That trauma ultimately can control the thinking process of people based upon experience. Based upon what people go through, if it is a traumatic event and a traumatic enough event, and everybody experiences trauma. Traumas don't always have to end up as bad as to where they're at PTSD or post-traumatic stress situations, but everybody experiences trauma. So what happens is the traumatic experience literally redirects your brain. It literally changes your brain. It's like, what's the highway we just finished riding on? Which one? 259. 2059. You on 2059, you go on 2059, and an accident happens on 2059, and you have to get off. Right? Now, you still got to get to your destination, but you can't go the way you was going.
All right.
Trauma literally redirects your brain to think differently. That's what happens. So the pattern that you're working with, the pattern that you go with, what happens in terms of the traumatic moment, it shifts how you operate. It shifts how you move. It shifts how you drive. It's just the way you go. Right? And that's what trauma does. It literally shifts. It can shift us physically, it shifts us emotionally, and it shifts us mentally. It shifts our minds and our brains and how we function. Somebody fell in love in this room. He was listening to Jerry Butler. The Iceman. Who called me? Who called me? There it is. The Iceman, Jerry Butler. Listening to Luther. Thought it was going to last forever. That person walked away. Left you high and dry. And the next person you ran into, everything that first person did to you, they got to pay for it. That's true. That's your mind has changed. Your mindset has shifted. Your brain is altered. That's what happened. I was growing up. Me and a friend of mine, we walked down the street. I went to a Catholic school. Me and a friend of mine, Henry Johnson, we walking down the street, and a girl that I knew was not in my class, but I knew. We were laughing and joking with her. She was walking past us. We were walking this way. White lady in the street. We didn't even know her. She hollered out. He just grabbed that girl right behind. We didn't touch her. But what we didn't know is that the police were behind us. She started hollering, we assaulted this girl. Now this is preaching. I have preached this. We didn't see the police behind us. She tried to get us arrested. She tried to get us in trouble. We're in front of a house, right? And we didn't touch it. Nobody touched it with it. All of a sudden, this voice came from the window. Said, young man, don't worry about it. I saw the whole thing. Don't worry about it. I saw the whole thing. Right? Because when you think God ain't watching. Right? Right? But so the cop asked the little white girl, did you touch it? Did you touch it? No. White lady in the street, she called us all kind of N-words, this, that, and the third. Right? There was a long time, this is 8th grade, there was a long time when I had to fight and resist not walking across the street when I saw a white girl come my way. Not because I just didn't want the trouble. I didn't want the trouble. That's what trauma is. It literally shifts the way you think. It shifts how we move. And everybody has experienced it. Everybody has experienced it. I don't care how tough you are. I don't care how much you love Jesus. I don't care how good the Lord has been to you. Everybody has experienced it. I get the next slide. So let's go to this working definition and understanding. All right? So there are different types of trauma. There's physical trauma, right? The injuries, car accidents, physical harm, right? Violence, natural disasters, right? Perfect example, this particular part of the area, part of the country, right? If a hurricane comes through here, y'all operate a certain way, right? Right? Because some people have experienced some really traumatic experiences as a result of the weather, right? And so what they do is, now when they hear hurricane, they mind does something different, right? There's emotional trauma, witnessing and experiencing distressing events, right? Abuse, neglect, loss, right? Your congregants, your people who you serve, they come from houses where they grew up with abuse. They grew up in spaces where they are living in domestic abuse. Some sitting on the front row. Some of them counting your money. Some of them making your food. They're dealing with different kinds of traumas. Complex trauma, exposure to multiple traumatic events over time, over and over and over and over again. Right? Things that happen repeatedly. And we're going to come to that in a minute. And then there's developmental trauma. Trauma experienced during childhood that can have lasting effects on brain development and mental health. Right? And so you get conditioned to think a certain way. So you get conditioned to believe certain things. Right? And so certain things are for you, and certain things aren't for you if you're operating in spaces of trauma. Right? So what we're going to talk about is community trauma. Next, community trauma refers to shared experiences of a traumatic event that affects a group of people or a whole community. And y'all ain't gotta hurt your feelings. If y'all come up to me, I'll email this to you. Y'all ain't gotta hurt yourselves. All right? But I mean, I'm not saying don't take notes. I'm just saying I can do this. All right? So It affects the community or a whole group of people. It's a collective response to a significant and overwhelming adversity that disrupts the sense of safety, trust, and cohesion within the community. So a community can experience a natural disaster and be traumatized from it. The school in Texas, Valde, right? Or the shooting in Florida, high school shooting, right? The collective experienced the trauma, right? What does it do, right? So, if that's the case, acts of terrorism, community trauma, the United States, 9/11, right? People ran around with pins, badges, bumper stickers that said what? Never forget, right? That's because of traumatic event has happened. So watch this. Systems of oppression are community trauma. Systems of oppression, if a collective group experiences the same thing consistently, that's the trauma. Oppression, discrimination, right? Those kinds of things. Historical events, slavery, genocide, 300 years of chattel slavery. And people say, just get over it. How do you get over something that has been systemically in place for so long? Right? How do you operate in different spaces, right, to understand those particular things? Genocide, right? Nobody gets mad at the Jewish community to say they'll never forget the Holocaust. Don't nobody get mad at Jews for that. Black folks start talking about racism and chattel slavery and institutional racism, and we got to get over it.
All right. All
A
right.
long time ago. I ain't on no slave. That's right. Right? And so it works consistently. We need to understand the dynamics of how it's set up. And so what I've done is come up with this context and this construct, and I hope it helps you. And I call it the four, right? Call it the four S's. Dr. Oli and I are working on a project. We're trying to include this. The four concepts of community trauma. The four concepts of community trauma are the structures, the systems, the symptom, and the self. Right? It operates in a systemic formula to where we understand the structures in which we operate in, the systems that reinforce the structures, the symptoms we experience as a result of these systems, and what it does internally to the self. All right? So we're going to talk about that just a little bit. So, structures, next slide. Structures, what we talk about are the legal structures, right? Like legal structures, so we're talking about historical laws, right? So we're talking about Jim Crow, right? Talking about red line policing. We're talking about immigration and exclusion acts, right? Those things are legal structures that are put in place, right? That repeal, that continue to be damaged over a course of period of time, right? They're baked into the cake. It's baked into the cake, right? The economic structures that we deal with, right? So wealth gaps that are created by exclusion for home ownership programs, right? Discriminatory lending processes, occupational segregation, right? So when the Reformation took place, and then we had black senators, we had black congressmen, and then we switch all of that to when we redistrict and all of those different kinds of things, right? It's baked into the cake, right? Talking about economic structures. So now, based upon your tax base, you can't get certain things in your school system. Because now certain things in your school system don't happen. School funding, tied to property taxes, tracking systems, discipline disparities, all those kinds of things. Redlining young people, a school to pipeline prison, pipeline. Right? So you go from school, and then we can start the track based upon your behavior or based upon your acting, and we can classify you, and now we can run you and figure out how many of y'all will end up in prison.
All right.
Michelle Alexander, New Jim Crow. If you don't have it, read it. Read it with your hymn book and your Bible. Right? So understand the healthcare structure. What happens in healthcare? What happens with black women with healthcare? Right here, looked over and left out. Right? How hospital closures, communities of color. We went on a tour yesterday. Brother Spirit took us on a tour yesterday, showed us the old hospital, told us where black people had to go, in the basement.
Uh-huh.
Right? Those kinds of ideas. And what this stuff does traumatically, mentally, not just financially to you, but what happens mentally? What happens mentally to criminal processing structures, right? When we find ourselves at mandatory minimums, right? How much time do you get for powder cocaine? How much you get for crack cocaine?
All right.
Right? Those kinds of things. Situations, young man steals an apple. If he's white, when he's a good kid, he's got a bright future. Young black man steal an apple, and he got to do 90 days. Right. Then we evaluate and judging his house, talk about his mom and everybody else. Right? So next slide. So after we look at it, and after we examine and see what happens in terms of the structures, the systems reinforce the policies that are put in the structure. Right? So the system simply reinforces what goes on. Right? So the systems come through with an interlocking nature. Right? So how the criminal legal system feeds into the employment discrimination. Right? So if I come out of jail, right, and I need a job, I can't get a job, right, because I have a criminal record, right? And what happens is, because it's interlocking, it connects, what it does is we normalize it, and it becomes normal. So what we do is, instead of saying the system is broken, what we do is say, well, you shouldn't have done that to get in trouble. If you don't get in trouble, you don't get locked up, you find work, right? We don't normalize the fact that system doesn't fall the same for everybody.
All right.
I was working on a master's degree in social work at Norfolk State University. There's a white guy in the class with me. There's a white dude in there, and we're talking about pistols. Okay? I feel very comfortable talking about it. I'm a gun owner. I ain't got no problem being a gun owner. I'm a responsible gun owner. I ain't got no problem with that. We sit there talking about pistols. He talking about pistols, and he talking about guns. He about to buy. He came out of prison. I said, I don't mean to be rude, but you was in prison, weren't you? He was like, yeah. I said, well, how do you get to get a pistol? And he said, oh, that was easy. I just made an appeal to the governor. The governor gave me a pardon. So now I can carry a pistol. I said, do you know how many black men have made that appeal and haven't gotten it? And you've been out 15 minutes. Right? The whole thing doesn't work. And what we do is say, well, if you play by the rules, here it is. The rules was never meant to work for you. The rules was never meant to work for you. One of the hardest things we got to come to, this ain't in my presentation, but this is what we need to hear. One of the hardest things in the world black people got to do is recognize that we was never meant to be a part of the team. I know they sold you on it. I know they sold you on it. They said if you play it right, if you do everything you're supposed to do, if you play by the rules, you'll make it. But you ain't never supposed to be a part of the team. That wasn't the design. The design wasn't for you to participate. You saw what happened when you did play by the rules and you got a black president. They went crazy. Right? And elected the craziest person to revert everything back the way it was. Right? So the interlocking nature happens, and then what happens is this space of normalization, right? So the patterns of, well, that's just the way it goes. That's just how things work, right? Making them invisible to those who are harmed, right? So if you fall victim to it, it's your fault. It's not the system. The system's not broken, right? You fall victim to it. Right? Institutional coordination, right? So how do banks, how do realtors, how do appraisers, how do municipal zoning boards historically work together and still do to maintain segregation? You go to some places, you want to buy a house, no matter how much money you got, somebody ain't going to show you the place you want to live in. Some people are going to show you the neighborhood you want to live in. Eddie Murphy lived in Alpine, New Jersey. Eddie Murphy lived on from New Jersey originally. Eddie Murphy lived in Alpine, New Jersey. Eddie Murphy lived in Alpine, New Jersey, and moved out to Upper Englewood, New Jersey. The reason why he moved out to Alpine, New Jersey is because every time he had a friend or somebody came over, the Alpine police pulled him over. Every time somebody came up to Alpine, somebody pulled him over. Right? So it didn't matter who he was.
All right.
They were always sending the message that you ain't part of the team. Right? So the institutional coordination. Right? Everybody not glad that you make the achievements you make. Right? And then what happens in policy cascades? How discriminatory policies, drug enforcement disparities, trigger consequences across multiple systems, right? So you get a drug charge now, and don't just mess with you if you come out of jail, now mess with your housing. Now you can't find somewhere to live, right? And not only that, now you can't vote. Right? And it can create issues with family and family separation, all those kinds of things. And so it continues to speak to a much layered system, right? So if the structures are put in place, if the structures are the bedrock and the systems reinforce what the structures are designed, then what that means is that there are symptoms as a result of us being in the process. Right? So we got individual systems, we got physical health. Bessel van der Kolk, there's a book called The Body Keeps the Score. I'm only going to tell you all about it tomorrow, called The Body Keeps the Score. What they are learning now in epigenetics is that things that happen to you traumatically, things that happen to your body, that they say it is literally possible to pass that down to the next generation. You literally pass it down through your genes. You're passing that down through your body. You're passing that down to how you think, to how you operate, and how you move. So there's physical health that takes place. Right? Why is it that we got high blood pressure now? That ain't page feet. It ain't just page feet. Because the truth of the matter is, we ate page feet, we ate hormones, we ate all that stuff, but we worked in a field for 12 hours. Right, so you burned it off, right? So it's a different kind of thing. So the different things, as they shift, but it's also the stress that you live with. So it's your mental health, those microaggressions that you deal with on a regular basis, right? Folks at your work, my sis right here with your braids, can I cut your hair? Let me ask you a question. I mean, y'all heard that word. Can I ask you a question? Barack Obama, Michelle, when black people say turn up, it's like, I am not your middle tour guide, man. I'm not designed to explain all that to you. Right? I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, a preacher friend of mine, talking to a friend of mine, he called me in great distress. He said, man, I'm sitting there with my wife. I'm sitting here with my wife, minding our business, we having dinner. Sitting there with my wife, and this white lady, she had too much to drink. She comes over and she starts talking. And I'm like, we're not interested in what you have to say. We're not interested in what you have to say. And she just keeps on talking. No, but let me show you my daughter. Let me show you my daughter. No. And to the point where my man said, ma'am, we don't care about your daughter. She says, that's rude. Now you done came over to my table, sat down next to me, and inserted yourself in our dialogue, and I'm the one being rude. You thinking about that all week long. But don't y'all act like y'all don't get me. You thinking about that? And they sound rude. Right? That's the kind of stuff that keeps us in terms of our mental health, our physical health, our behavior, how we behave, how we move, right? How we code switch. Right? How we move in certain spaces. Right? Nods and acknowledgments. Right? Those kinds of things that say, listen, I get it. Those kinds of things that say, you're safe. Those kinds of things that say, I see you, that you are seen. Right? Those code switches as survival, right? Avoidance in certain spaces. Right? Right? Some of us say, I don't go certain places because I don't like the drama. No, some of us got too much anxiety about being in certain spaces. Right? So then there are community level symptoms. Right? Economic. Right? Persistent wealth gaps. Right? Business closure rates. Unemployment disparity. Right? Concentration on precarious work. Right? Our social community symptoms. Right? So the residential segregation we live with. How we operate in those spaces. Right? Food deserts. Right? Where we operate in food deserts. Why does it make any sense that there is no supermarket in any neighborhood? Why is there not a supermarket in every neighborhood? Why is that special? To say, well, we got a supermarket. Why is that unique? There's people who live in the neighborhood and everybody got to eat. Right? So, those kinds of things, the lack of green space, right? Those kinds of things, infrastructures, those kinds of ideas, right? Loss of cultural practices from culture, right? So when we get to the point where we start operating like we are afraid to embrace who we are. We're afraid to embrace, our culture, afraid to talk about certain things. Right? And we do the things all the time. We're doing a particular project right now with a group of churches that we call the Outliers, and we're talking about ancestry. We're talking about ancestral connection. William Lamar has a book on ancestors. Y'all need to look at it and check it out. But we're talking about ancestors, and we're talking about connecting what we do in terms of Christianity to African spirituality, to understand that if we never lost it, it just shows up in different ways. Right? Y'all know exactly what I'm talking about, right? Y'all have situations where y'all want to do some stuff, and you say, you know what my grandmama said. Your grandmama been dead 15 years, but you say, my grandmama said, that's ancestral connection, right? Y'all chilling out, minding your business, all of a sudden the screen door closed. Bang! You go, all right, Martin. That's ancestral connection. We do that. Now, watch what happens. We let white folks vilify it. Call it witchcraft, call it devil, you call it all that other kind of thing. But when white folks are talking about St. Ignatius, or St. Jerome, or St. Mary, or St. this, or St. that, we don't have a problem with it. It's ancestral veneration. It's the same thing. But when we do it, it's somehow another witchcraft or demonic. So you have to understand your own sense of cultural embracing. Understand who you are and how you manifest yourself. All right? So we're going to do the next one. And after all of these things, these symptoms that we feel, right? After all of these symptoms that we experience, then what happens is it does something internally to the self. Right? If we experience all those symptoms, then it does something to ourselves. And there's an effects of a perpetual condition. So then we internalize racism. Come here, Tim Scott. We internalize it to where we think we the problem, and white folk got the answer. So we go on national TV and look at the most demonic person in the world and say, well, I just love you. Right? We operate in these spaces to where we think that black is bad. Right? That what we do, our culture, our whole idea, right, needs to be excused in some way, shape, or form. The whole idea of racial identity development, right? Psychological work that requires us to have even positive ideas of who we are, right? How we represent, how we see ourselves, television, media, and all of those kinds of things. The imposter syndrome, the way we think we have to. We show up in spaces that we feel inadequate. Right? We're going to fire all of the generals, the black generals, and people who are qualified, and then hire a UFC wrestler. And call it fair. Right? And here's my take on this thing. All of this stuff about removing DEI, all this other kind of stuff that you think looks strong, doesn't make you look strong at all. It comes from a place of weakness. I come from Elizabeth, New Jersey. And if you're the baddest, and I think you're the baddest, and I want to be the baddest, I challenge the baddest. That's what I do. I don't take the baddest out of the equation and then jump in and say, hey, I'm the greatest. Oscar De La Hoya was never my favorite fighter, but Oscar De La Hoya fought everybody who showed up.
All right.
That's strength. Don't fix the deck and then talk about how bad you are. You show up and fight the baddest that shows up. And so if the pool shows up, the black women are the baddest, let them be the baddest. If somebody like Latinx show up, let them be the baddest. But don't operate in this fixed deck to where you think somehow or another you are superior to everybody else. Authenticity conflicts. How do you operate from a space of authenticity? Right? How do you act genuine? How can you be your authentic self? Right? Because oftentimes we don't feel like it. Right? I can't show up as me. Right? The sense of resilience and resistance. The challenge is to do that. When do I show up? When do I say that's not cool? Right? You know, when do I say the joke is not cool? Right? Or the discussion of, well, you know, you guys use it. Why can't I use the N-word? Use it. Go ahead and use it. Use it. No, use it. I dare you. I dare you. I dare you. Right. I've been waiting to choke somebody all week. So please, go ahead. So, next slide real quick. So listen. So the structures, the systems, the symptoms, and the self. This is how they show up. So this is how they work together. How they work together, these four, is that the structure, let's use schools. So, right, so the discriminatory lending and housing policies create a segregated neighborhood. Right? That's the structure. Right? The system is the school funding is tied to the property taxes that ensures the educational inequality. Right? So that's how the system operates. So the symptom of that is the achievement gaps start to show up. Yeah. So the kids don't score as high and all those other kind of things. And so people equate the scoring of your testing to the intelligence of your children, right? And so they speak to a sense of community members experience chronic stress as a result of always having the threat the state will take over your school and all those other kind of things. And what shows up in the self, right, is an internalized belief, right? So that now your kids feel like they can't learn. Or they're not supposed to learn. Or they learn better or because they got better on the other side of town. Right? So, and it just continues to go round and round in a circle. So the structure continues to reinforce the system, which reinforces the symptoms that we experience, that always has an effect on the self. All right? Let's look at the next one. I'm moving quick. So this continues to go on, right? So historical and intergenerational trauma happened to all of us, right? And we operate in spaces of racial battle fatigue, right? The constant stress of navigating predominantly white spaces to where we get exhausted. Some of y'all, or most of you all, did not have the luxury to have Ralph Reeves, who was a history professor of religious history at School of Theology at Virginia University, right? Ralph Reeves said, the black preacher is the most freest individual in the black community if he or she is courageous enough because they can tell the truth. And they have space to tell the truth. Now, if you bought, you corrupted, that's a whole other situation. We pray for you, but the black preacher is one of the most freest individuals in the African American community because they have the power and the ability to tell the truth. The question that we need to ask ourselves is, why don't we? Why don't we tell the truth? If this is the safest space for us to be, why can't we tell the truth? And I'm gonna push y'all because I'm getting on the plane tomorrow. If we are in black space, we are embracing who we are, and two white people come to visit, why are you changing what you say?
All right.
You got 400 black people in a space, two white people show up, now you got to be polite.
That's the trauma that you're living with. If it's the truth, let it be the truth.
Amen.
Right? Microaggressions, right? Racial violence, right? Weathering and wearing effects of cultural and racial identity. My good friend Matthew Williams, my brother Matthew Williams, I was talking to him. I think it was Ahmaud Arbery who got killed. I said, man, did you see this video? Matt said to me, he said, man, I refuse to watch another black snuffle. It does something to your mind.
Yeah.
Does something to your psyche. Right? And so we have to understand that we weather certain effects. Economic and educational barrier, right? That we wrap our minds around. They don't want to teach your history in your school. They started here. You have the Saturday class. Teach your history here. It needs to be taught here anyway.
All right.
Take your kids, not just your kids, because there's a whole lot of grown folk don't know it either. Take your kids and take your congregation and go on the tour of downtown Birmingham and look at all those things down there. Learn, reconnect, understand the power that comes from it, understand your story, right? The misunderstood survival strengths, the spiritual bypassing that we do and operate in this space. Stop talking about forgiving folk who ain't apologized for nothing.
All right.
Stop rushing to forgiveness. Because that's toxic. I'm a therapist, I know this stuff. That is toxic. You can't have a healthy dynamic if you keep forgiving and the people have not acknowledged that there is a wrong. Part of your assignment is to declare what is wrong. It's in Matthew somewhere, I think. If that person has offended you, you're supposed to go to them and let them know.
Yeah.
Operate in those particular spaces. And so we find ourselves as leaders, spiritual leaders, dealing with these particular things. This is what your congregations are coming in here with. They're dealing with stuff all week long at work. They're dealing with the police pulling them over. They're dealing with, they trying to get the loan. They're dealing with, they're trying to start the business. They're wrestling with this stuff. And they want to know what God has to say. Because it ain't fair. Right? So working definitions and understanding of what community trauma produces. Increased rates of mental health problems, anxiety, depression, post-traumatic stress, post-traumatic slave syndrome, right? To where we repeat certain things, right? We repeat certain things without even thinking about it. Joy DeGury, post-traumatic slave syndrome. That's another book. If you don't have it, get it. Read it with your hip in your Bible. She tells a story about how we have been conditioned for preservation, right? To keep things together, right? So check this out. She says in the space that to keep families together, right? What would often happen is that she would minimize the ability and gift of individuals. So when the overseer saw your son big and strong and he was picking up stuff and he was running fast, the overseer would say, "Well, that boy sure is getting strong. He sure is getting big." Right? What you would do is minimize it. No, he ain't no help, Pastor. He not no help. Because why? The fear is he would get sold away. Yeah. So you would minimize it. So now, when somebody tells you, "Oh, your daughter's so bright," she a handful though. Oh my God, your son, he's more trouble than he worth. That's the trauma. That's how it's connected. And we repeat it. Don't even know why. It's in your body, it's in your bones. It's showing up in your DNA. So we have to find ways to do that. The substance abuse, right? People escaping, alcohol, right? Drugs, the escape these things, the violence that gets perpetuated, right? I don't know what to do with it. I don't know how to frame this work. So what I do is I blow up. Disrupt the social networks. Don't know how to communicate with folks. Don't know how to share with people. Stay isolated, right? Intergenerational trauma. And then I just pass this down. I keep passing it down. And people keep operating
than living in those particular spaces. So here it is for us. As we understand this, as we talk about these things in very general sense, and as you talk about being spiritual leaders, and as you talk about guiding people and working out their spirituality, here's the question. Next slide, please. What is walking into you? Not what you're walking into. When you get to your church, not what you're walking into. What's walking into you? Right? My mentor and good friend Sam Joe Ratner said, know where you is at. You got a whole lot of dreams, a whole lot of ideas. That's a beautiful thing. But know where you is at. Right? What is the context of your ministry setting? Right? What's going on around you? Right? What's the DNA of the place that you are ministering in? Right? What's the current conditions of those who you currently serve? Right? You can't talk about certain things in certain spaces for them to make the connect. Right? If you dealing, all due respect, with blue collar people, you got to operate and give it to them in blue collar ways. Right? And you can have aspirations, but you can't keep talking about college, and if that ain't the context you're dealing with. Right? You might have to talk about trade school. You might have to talk about military. You might have to talk about entrepreneurship. We all need to talk about entrepreneurship. Black folks don't talk about that enough, but that's a whole other workshop. Right? But we need to talk about the things that relate in the current conditions. What's the culture that they exist in? Right? What's the culture? There is culture. There is a spiritual DNA that you operate in. Church I formerly served in New Jersey, it was a split. It was a split church. Right? They split from the First Baptist. They split from the First Baptist. And watch this. Watch the dynamic. They were the blue-collar people that were at the First Baptist. And so there were blue-collar people trying to be silk-stocking. Right? But under the DNA, all they wanted to do was fight. So I couldn't go in there fighting them because they knew how to do that. And they knew how to do that better than me. Right? So you have to know the context of what you're dealing with and what the folk are dealing with. Right? Reverend Stewart talked about the steel mills here. Right? The steel mills and how they use prison labor. Right? That spirit is still here. This folks still remember that. That thing still cuts deep to a lot of people. You have to know the context in which you're operating from. What's the culture where you are? Birmingham? Wait, somebody said it. I heard they used to call it Birmingham. Right? Like, if you walk downtown, and maybe it's because I'm visiting, but if you walk downtown, you can't feel the energy. I mean, look, he took about new songs, right? Yeah, I think it was new songs. He took me past 16th Street, well, definitely past 16th Street, there's an energy. It's like, yo, take off your shoes. This is holy ground. Right? They got statues and murals in the park. There's power here. How do you tap into that? Right? How do you develop that? How do you grow that? Right? I'm gonna give you this and I'm gonna leave out. We are operating in a space this Sunday, some of us, right? Operating in the space Sunday where we got to talk about Paul. Right? And if we understand the story, for real, we don't know how revolutionary it is. Right? Pilate's on the West Gate. Pilate's on the West Gate coming in with pomp and circumstance. But Jesus is in the beautiful gate. He's on the East Gate. Right? He's coming in on a coat that ain't even his. Right? And he's coming in this space, right, as a protest. This is a protest. The pomp and circumstance is on the other side of town. But the people who are tired of hearing the same old thing, right, they're over in the East End. Because they don't want to get fooled by Trump no more. They want to be told everything is okay. They don't want to be told that we doing it and we winning and they want to surrender. They don't want to hear the BS no more. They say, I want somebody who can help me. And the declaring is what? Hosanna. Hosanna is save us. Right? And they wave palms in the air and lay them on the ground. Palms are a symbol of victory. So they shouting in victory before the battle is even fought. They are declaring victory because Jesus has shown up. But this is what he says. He says they said, Hosanna to God in the highest. They said we are anticipating, right, the coming of our Lord and Savior. And they recognize, they say, our ancestor David. They say, our father David. That's ancestry. They say they're tapping into something. Just because we're moving forward don't mean we don't remember where we came from.
All right.
There's power in it. And when we understand the power that's in it, we are transformative. And we use the power of our past to move forward. That's what a Sankofa movement is. Right? When we look back, when we move forward, when we embrace where we come from. Okay, it's what we do. So know what you don't know. Next slide, real quick. Know what you don't know. Right? Know what you don't know. Johnny Ray Youngblood said one time, he said, it ain't my job as a pastor to know everything. He said, it's my job to know the people who know the stuff I don't know.
All right.
Recognize the trauma is layered. If you're a person who is ministering to people, and you are not sensitive to needs, I mean, there are people in the world like that. They're just not that kind of sensitive or in tune. Don't tell people to get over it. And for God's sake, don't tell them Jesus will fix it and walk away. Because I'm going to come back down to Batman and beat you up. It's layered. We can't use cliches and phrases anymore. People are dealing with stuff. And what we need to understand is you can preach a riveting sermon, you can give awesome advice, and they still go back to the same spaces. Right? So you're a leader, but you don't have all the answers. So be comprehensive in your approach. You got social workers in your church. You got guidance counselors in your church. You got nurses in your church. You have people who have different abilities and skills in your church. So be wise enough to use those. Be wise enough to tap into those. Right? Be wise enough to understand that the gifts are in the building. The gifts are in the building. Do cooperative ministry for God's sake. Stop trying to do everything yourself. Stop trying to do everything yourself. If the pandemic didn't teach us anything, is that we can co-op with some stuff. Start with the 7 last words. Do it with 3 other churches. Stop having 18 7 last words in the same city. Because tell the truth, you won't get 10 people to show up. Do 5 churches so y'all can have 25 people show up.
All right.
Everything doesn't have to be yours, right? It's the kingdoms. It's the communities. Let it be the communities. Let it speak to the communities. Don't placate. Don't be present. Don't just give a quick scripture and move on. Because that helps you. That don't help them. A scriptural cliche is cool, right? For you. That does not help anybody. Be solution focused, not problem centered. If you got leaders in your church that all they can concentrate on is what the problem is, get new leaders.
All right.
I'm going to say that. If I was preaching, I would say, somebody tweet that for me. Right? If you got leaders that all they want to do is find a problem, find new leaders. You want people who are solution focused, who care about the needs of the people, and recognize the difference between justice and charity. My friend Daniel Ayers and Reggie Williams wrote a book, To Serve This Present Age. Right? And what it says is to serve this present age is there's a difference between justice and charity. Charity is a feeding program. Charity is a clothing program. Charity is letting the homeless stay at your church for a night or for a week. That's charity. Justice asks the question, why they homeless to begin with? Justice asks the question, why aren't they eating? Charity has food on Saturday for your community. They come and they pick up the food because you got it from the supermarkets or whatever, and they donate it. That's charity. Justice says, why is this a food desert to begin with? So ask the questions of justice. Charity is fine. Charity has its place. But as leaders, we ought to be asking some justice questions. So ground yourself first. Last slide. Ground yourself first. Create safe space. Let people lament. Let people grieve. Let people feel what they are feeling. Let people have to sit in it. We're in this season, right? Because somebody next Friday is going to preach this. Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani. Right? Sometimes we got to sit in it. Sometimes we have to sit in it. Right? Name your demon. What is your name? They call me Legion. Because there's a whole lot wrong with me. There are many. Right? So, in my therapist's voice, whatever you think is wrong with me, whatever you think is wrong with you, add about 4 more things. Whatever you think you're dealing with, add about 4 more things. Because what happens is, when couples come to me, and one of the spouses always says, and I know I have issues. I say, stop right there. I said, what are they? Huh? What are they? You know you got them. What are they? You just said that so that you can say what you was about to say about this person sitting next to you. You haven't thought about your issues at all for real. Right? Normalize mental health practices. We are emerging into a new space as people of color, right? Because we were real hard pressed that it ain't nobody else's business. And we have seen what ain't nobody else's business has done to our families and our children and our individuals. So we understand the importance of mental health. We understand to talk to somebody, right? Talk to somebody. Talk, and I'm going to say this with all due respect, talk to somebody who's trained to listen to you. Yeah. I tell the New Calvary congregation all the time, some of y'all need Jesus and Prozac. Some of y'all need Jesus and 50 minutes on the couch. I had some services that we were going to give, right? And this is the kind of stuff I'm talking about co-opting. Went to the community ministry alliance group in the area. I presented it. I said, listen, you guys can call. We got a pre-marriage program. We can do it. You don't even have to do the pre-marriage stuff. We give them a certificate, they come back to you, they hand you the certificate saying we went through the pre-marriage thing, you just married them. You don't have to do it. First thing the older guy said was, well, who gonna run it? Who gonna teach you? I said, the people who are trained to teach us. And nobody signed up. Because they just want to be in charge. You telling your congregation all kinds of toxic stuff. stay in bad marriages, they all that stuff. You tell them all kind of toxic stuff. Because you're afraid to listen to somebody who's prepared and trying to do it. You gotta come out of that. You don't know everything. Right? You gotta balance comfort and prophetic truth. Yeah, we're supposed to heal, but yeah, we gotta tell people the truth as well. Right? We gotta build practical support systems, find them, like I said, they're in your spaces, and preserve joy and celebration. We're always supposed to be operating in spaces of possibility. That is spiritual leaders, possibility is our thing. How do we make possibility and hope the thing that people hold on to? Right? So what are the drums telling you, my brothers and sisters? What are the drums telling you where you are? Are you even keen to listen? What are some of the rhythms that you hear in your community? What are the drums in your community calling you to do? You got a passion for clothing, and everybody got coats, but they ain't got no tooling. What's the calling to do? How do you begin to shape your ministry to respond to some of the traumas in your area? What are the traumas in your area? What are the traumatic things that are messing people up in your area? What are they constantly talking about? If they talking about violence and their kids getting shot in the neighborhood, and you keep talking about Jesus and going to heaven, you are not paying attention. How do you begin to reframe your spiritual approaches in your ministry context to help your people heal from some of the stuff that they're experiencing? That's the challenge. How do you challenge yourself in those spaces? Because it's able. And because if we operate in those spaces of network, what you don't have, you will find it. If you trust it and believe it. So the context and the question is, do you really want it to work? Or do you want it to work the way you want it to work? I said that too fast. Do you really want it to work? Or do you want it to work the way you want it to work? Because there's a difference. There's a difference. Well, Scott Thomas told me one day, he said, your job is to be successful. He said, you have to ask yourself what that looks like. Because if your only concern is to be in charge, then success, your ability to be successful goes down dramatically. Thank you. God bless you. I didn't even ask no questions. Are there any questions? I'm sorry. I said questions, y'all. See, that's what happens. My wife said I talk too fast. So I'm sorry. Any questions, ideas, hopes, dreams, fears, thoughts? Yes. You gotta use your outside voice. I need to use your preacher voice. Use your preacher voice. Yeah.
I was fascinated with this whole concept of this trauma situation that the church has found itself in, and it relates to ministry. When you were talking, I was thinking about the idea of God's purpose for this season that we're in. The reason why I said that is because He said He sent His word and it healed them. And the power of the word is what I think that we're not focusing on. I'm not negating I'm sorry, I don't mean it. I'm not negating this what you just did. It's good because you're a therapist and you're coming from a therapist point of cooperative. That's good.
And a pastor.
But what I'm saying is, Christ said, if I be lifted up, I'll draw men to myself. And that's what the church is called to be, Christ-centered, not just us-centered. And when I say that, I'm saying it because that's where I am now. At one time, I was all about what everybody, I wanted to, I saw someone was trying to do something, I wanted to help that person be them instead of be what God was calling them to be. So as ambassadors for Christ, We gotta always make him the center of the trauma reducer.
Mm-hmm.
Trauma is what life gives to us.
Mm-hmm.
But Christ is what brings the healing. And the church is representative of the healing that Christ brings. And we just talk about ourselves, whether we're a Baptist church or a Holiness church or whatever the congregational identity is, it focuses, the community only sees us.
Mm-hmm.
They don't see the Christ in us. So in other words, if we humble ourselves to recognize that where you are, there I am also. I'm there with you. But the healing comes from when we focus on Christ, because he's coming back to the church, because the church is supposed to be representative of who he is, not what we're going through. Does that make sense? What we're going through, we all experience. All of us are sinners. None of us, we can go to school and get all the degrees that we want, but none of the degrees will save us from life's trauma. But what saves us from trauma is our relationship with Christ. That's all I'm saying. If we fail as a church, and when I say a church, I'm not talking about this church or my church or your church in New Jersey or somewhere else. I'm talking about the universal appeal that Christ has for the whole world.
Mm-hmm.
That we all come to a place of recognizing that we are lost and he is our Savior. We're sick, he is our healer. We are out and he's the way it is. That's all.
Yeah, I think I don't think anybody is trying to remove or take away Jesus. I think what we need to understand is our ability to be those vehicles is expanding. And what are the models and the tools of healing that we can use as individuals who are followers of Christ, right? So Jesus saves, right? But we are also talking about, well, how does that look, right? And if we are vehicles who are pastoral care people, who are nurses, who are doctors, we can be informed and empowered in our knowledge and also in our conviction spiritually. So I think the church shows up in the doctor's office. The church shows up on the therapy couch. The church shows up in the lawyer's office. If the person is operating from a space of conviction, right, then what they do is going to reflect that relationship. So I think we're saying the same thing. I think we're saying the same thing. I think that we just need to recognize that we are using and talking about using the tools that we have to help that mission and to help the healing take place that people need. Right? Because we've already seen somebody say 2 Corinthians, and we know ain't no God nowhere in that whole process, right? So we know that there is not real authenticity and conviction, right? But I think we are called to be the light, and even in the space in which we operate. So I think we're saying the same thing. And I hope we use what we have to forward that agenda of liberation and empowerment. Yeah, I think so. Yes, sir.
This has helped me a whole lot. You talked about trauma. I come from a rural area, small town. We got 9 churches in my area. We're still preaching from the trauma of COVID. How can we attack that?
How do you attack the trauma of COVID? What does it look like? Give them the mic again. What does it look like?
For instance, you know, we, as pastors, we did what we had to do to make sure we brought church to the home.
Right.
So now people are not coming back to church.
And OT,
But they're saying,
or now
they're saying we got to get people back to church.
oh,
So we're not trying to get people back to church. There's still trauma we had to deal with that trauma.
gotcha.
Right.
Gotcha. I'm gonna be 100% transparent with you, brother. I have no idea. Because I think it's a national thing. I was telling my wife just yesterday, we had a memorial last Friday, memorial service. A whole lot of people showed up. And if one person said, I know you don't see me, Pastor, but I see you online. I watch you online. It was 20 of them. If one had said it, it was 20. And I started to say, I don't see no time online. Not that it's all about that, but where's your investment? I need to know your investment. You know what I'm saying? I need to know where your investment is. And so I think we have made things very, very convenient for the people not to, you know, kind of turn. My pastor, Reverend Moses, was now an ancestor, told me when I first started pastoring, he had a really, really deep voice. He said, son, you will find that your Negroes are first and third, or second or fourth. And he was wrong. like he really was wrong. And so now with the pandemic and COVID and all that, it's a whole other thing. So I really wish I knew what the drawback was. And again, yeah, my thing is, you know, let's do mega ministry and get caught up in mega churches. And not get caught up in mega churches. I've always found out that the biggest crowd comes from the biggest show. And so, you know, I think, you know, if we keep some stuff running, yeah, that's it. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Dealing with trauma.
Mm-hmm.
We have a lot of people in our churches that are traumatized from a lot of different things.
Absolutely.
They show up out of culture, but mentally, emotionally, they're not there. They're not hearing the word.
Right.
They're just there.
Right.
And for me, that's why I believe the church should be holistic within this.
Absolutely.
Some people show up wondering that you can tell that something is wrong. Just ask the question, how can I help?
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I like, partnering with other social workers or bring things into the church that can let them become whole, not so much just saved, but mentally and emotionally. I think churches don't look from that perspective, right? Because the word can do this, the word gonna do what it's gonna do. Right. At the same time, people need some help with him. Right. Right. Don't mean the word don't work. Right. But are we recognizing those other traumas and those other things? Because when they just showing up and not hearing the word, right, then the word is not really doing what it needs to do, because I don't hear you because I'm dealing with the trauma. Right. Right. I'm here, but I'm not here. Yeah. So as pastors and ministers, I think we got to think beyond just God don't do it. God don't do it. But God's saying you do it. Right. Right.
I think, yeah, I do new members class at my church on first Sunday, and I tell them a story. My mother was a special education teacher, and she would always say, in Newark, New Jersey, she was a special education in Newark, New Jersey, and she was like, you can't have a child who did not eat the night before and did not eat that morning. Tell them to concentrate that 2 + 2 is 4. The need hasn't been met. And if the need hasn't been met, I can't reach your message. I can't feel what you're saying because I'm in too much pain with where I am, right? And so I think there has to be that space to where we have to meet people where they are. right? That's the woman at the well, right? That's the woman at the well, right? Like she's chilling out. I'm gonna do this real quick. She's chilling out at 12 o'clock in the afternoon. The women get their water in the morning. She's chilling out at 12 in the afternoon. Now, let's keep it real. We're talking real, right? Jesus is a carpenter. He deal with wood. He handling stuff, right? Jesus got a little physique on him. Jesus got a little build on him. He don't look like Michelangelo's cousin.
Okay.
He got a little build on him. He got a little physique on him, right? Right? He's sitting there, and he's chilling at the well at noon, right? Got that brown chocolate skin. He looked at Sister Girl. He said, "Bring me some water." She like, now you know you don't want no water. You ain't got no cup. You ain't got no ladle. You ain't got no bucket. You are not at this well for water, sir. Right? He says, well, no. If you knew who was asking, you'd ask me for some water. Right? She gave. She said, the well is deep, boo-boo. She said, the well is deep. You playing games right here. This is what you really here for. Right? What you really here for. Right? So he says, the water I have, you'll never be thirsty again. Now, I want everyone in this room to be honest with me for 30 seconds. Without question, he was running game. But sisters, even if you know it's game, if it's good game, you gonna try. And so she said, well, let me get some of this water. Then he said, go get your husband. Well, see, what happened is, I don't have no husband. You had 5. And the man you with now is not your husband.
All right.
Watch this. Everybody pump your brakes. What we do is we turn her into a loose woman. But in Jesus' antiquity, she's considered property. And if you made a good enough argument to the priest who declared divorces, you could get a divorce written quickly. So all you had to do was say something like, well, she can't cook. I got kids, she can't cook, she messing up my household, and she divorced. So 5 men have divorced her. And the one that she's with ain't committed enough to make her a wife.
All right.
So when Jesus is kicking this game, her mindset is, you just like every other man. But Jesus got to meet her where she is. Because watch what happens, Steve Blunt. By the time she figures out who he is, she the one running through the street. Talk about y'all need to come see a man. Right? So the need has to be met in order for the transformation to happen. Right? And we think that we good because we present the possibility, right? Without a means to the need. And so we have to be mindful of how that goes. You good? Okay. Thank you all. Namaste. Appreciate that.
Can we put our hands together for Reverend Dr. Marcus Small? Come on, can we do a little bit better than that? A little bit better than that.